Good morning, afternoon, or evening. My name is Kim Poe. I'm the Children and Young Adult Consultant with the Connecticut State Library. And we're here picking up on sort of a habit, well, not a habit, but we've got a little series of hearing about past summer enrichment grant programs. This one was one of my favorites because of the collaborative effort of this particular program in a sort of unusual way that we hadn't seen in any of the other grants. So I am going to turn it right on over you to tell us about Baking Buddies and the kids and the Senior Center, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. It was a year ago. But thank you so much for being here to share your program with us.
Thank you, Kim. Hi, so I'm Tricia Carlin. I'm from the Westbrook Public Library. And in the summer of 2022, my former colleague, Ariel Wander, and I put forth this Baking Buddies program, which was funded through the Connecticut State Library and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And so that's what I was going to tell you about today. Ariel and I both were really interested in this grant when we saw the publicity for it. We were really hoping to tie in the children of our community and get them more interested in reading and spend some time with the senior citizens in our community. The Senior Center director had mentioned to both of us that her clients wanted to communicate and work with the children in the town because they were former school teachers and they would enjoy being around the young children again. So we knew that food was a really big draw with other library programs that we had, and we figured that would continue with the children as well. We knew that a third of the students in our community were on free or reduced lunch plans at school, and 10% of the children in our community were English learners. So if they could be paired up with a senior, especially a retired teacher, that would really maybe give them a boost educationally as well as, emotionally. So we looked at that. We wanted to reduce the summer slide, and so it was great that the grant encouraged us to work with other organizations in our community. So Senior Center, perfect tie-in. The Senior Center also had the added draw of having a commercial kitchen and a nice tile floor to work in. And so we were really excited to, have that space to work with the children and the adults in our community. We figured we'd target like 3rd and 4th grade children because they would be somewhat independent, but we could have them establish a good relationship with the adults. And we realized that it being summertime, it would be tricky to get the kids in during the day unless we roped in the Parks and Rec department. They run a summer camp all summer long for the children of our community. So that tied in really well with what we were looking to do. So we wanted to improve baking skills and confidence in the kitchen. And we had these ideas of like having 8 sessions once a week, just have one session for 8 weeks to kind of build this relationship between everybody over the course of time. And we came up with like 8 recipes that we wanted to instruct the kids on. And so we were like set to go. Ariel made this beautiful Excel spreadsheet. It had links, it had prices, it had all the bells and whistles. It was beautiful. It had lists of ingredients and what each recipe needed and how much of each ingredient we would need to buy to cover 20 to 25 children attending each session. But we ran into some problems. And that's where the program evolved. First of all, we couldn't get the kids to the senior center, which was about a mile and a half away. Maybe it's not that far, but it just wasn't feasible. Luckily, the Park and Rec Camp program, however, was held at our local elementary school, which is next door to our library. So the children were able to walk over to our library and participate. However, the community room where we were able to host this program had a rug for a floor, which is not ideal when you're cooking with children or sometimes even adults. And the kitchen was smaller too. There was no big dishwasher. The sink is small. It just wasn't optimal, but that's okay. We could do that, right? Then we found out that the seniors would not, we weren't getting the senior volunteer numbers that we were hoping for. Actually, we only ended up with 2 senior volunteers due to medical problems, due to post-pandemic concerns, and also scheduling problems because it being summer, people are away. So we really just ended up with 2 volunteers, and they were only able to come, like, I think 3 times out of 8. But the biggest problem we had was that July classes for the extended school year meant that the Park and Rec kids would not be able to participate for 4 out of the 8 weeks. So that drastically cut down the number of programs that or sessions that we wanted to hold. So we revamped that and we opened it up to a second group of children who were in 1st and 2nd grade. And that way we were able to reach a whole bunch of kids. So that was really nice. Thinking about the other pieces of that. When we ran into the problems with the senior center and not being able to have as many senior volunteers, we did advertise with our patrons to see if any of our regular patrons would be interested in volunteering for the program, but we didn't get any takers for that. So we tried to work around it. The lack of the senior volunteers meant that there was a lot of waiting while the children were at our sessions, because we really wanted them to have the hands-on practice of measuring the ingredients and thinking out how much of each ingredient needed to go into the recipe. So that was that lag time that meant the whole session took longer, and there was less time for the kids to spend reading books at the end. And the kids didn't get that one-on-one support with a grown-up reading with them. So that was somewhat disappointing. But there were some good things that happened out of the whole experience. And one of them was that we got to work with the town departments. The senior center director was super helpful with obtaining the ingredients. She let us work through her vendor. I think we got a discounted price. She went shopping for us and had all this stuff delivered. Like, she brought it over to our library for us. So it was a really big support for us. And our Park and Rec director threw out this really great idea that we would need to have some Benadryl on hand. We went to a lot of work, especially Ariel. She adapted these recipes not only to be individualized, but to not have the ingredients that might typically cause allergic reactions. So she, for example, substituted sun butter from sunflowers instead of peanut butter. Same idea, just less dangerous for some children. But our Park and Rec director said, keep Benadryl on hand. You never know when an allergy is going to creep up on somebody. And luckily nothing happened, but it was a nice reassurance. I think that we ended up with about 160 kids throughout the 8 sessions that we had. So we had a good reach in our community. The children loved the hands-on activities. They loved making something that they could then eat. They liked what they made. Usually there were a couple of outliers there, but they tried new things. They tried coconut, they tried sun butter, they tried granola. It was really eye-opening, I think, for them. And they went home and they did continue to do some things in the kitchen. As we found out later, patrons would come in with their children or without, and they would say, oh, my kid did the program and they really liked it, and that was a good recipe, and some fun, good, happy feedback. So that was really great. The survey results gave us some good, really good feedback as well, and that was that more than 3/4 of the children would come back to the library again, and they also felt that they learned something new. So that was really good. 2/3, more than 2/3, felt that they would use these skills later on in life, which was great. And we found out that more than 2/3 of those children liked to read, and more than 2/3 liked to bake. So that was kind of fun as well. I think the program increased awareness of our library throughout the community, especially with the young kids who just get in the car and they go where their parents take them. And if their parents don't take them to the library, then they don't really think about it. But maybe now they know to ask their parents to bring them to the library. So that was really hopeful. We had hoped when we, with our initial idea, to send the kids home at the end with a booklet of the recipes that they made. However, we were unable to do that because we only ended up with 4 recipes as opposed to 8. That was a good thing in a way, because on the early half of the week with the first session, we were able to find out some challenges that we could then tweak with the second session, which would run more independently. But it limited the number of ingredients we needed. We needed to reconfigure some of the logistical things, if you know what I mean. So at any rate, we were able to instead send them home with like a paperback DK cookbook. So they came up with a whole bunch more recipes to try at home, and the kids did come in to the library later on and say that they tried some of those recipes as well. So that's how the program ran. Do you have any questions about it?
Well, I think, one of the, if you see me looking to the side, it's because I've got like the pictures and stuff up that were submitted from the grant. What I like about hearing about programs like this is that, like, and I think many of us, particularly who work in children's services, see this happening a lot, right? You'll plan this big program. It's summer and no one's in school. And so, we do all these things. We have 900 programs in 3 months. And, when we plan these bigger ones, there is always something that happens almost every single time. And we've got to pivot and we've got to shift. In your case, not getting as many volunteers as you thought we were going to get, like an extended school year and sort of things happening with Park and Rec, things that are completely out of your control. But I really love that you were able to pivot the program and still offer such a fantastic, I think there's a lot more educational benefits to cooking and baking than we think. I know my dad, I gotta say, sometimes it was frustrating, but it was very helpful, turned making pancakes on Saturday into math class. But at least you get, like, food at the end, right? It's like, it says 1/4 flour. What is that in 1/8? And you're like, but why can't we use the 1/4? It's right there, right? Like, I don't understand why you're doing this to me. There's an opportunity to sort of learn and be educated, and get something delicious at the end of it, if you're not a math lover like I wasn't at that time. So the fact that you were still able to service so many kids despite, you know, kind of the shifts and bumps and bruises. I really love hearing about that because I think it can help people from feeling a little defeated, right? Like when you put so much work and effort and thought and make beautiful spreadsheets and then, you know, things can't work out exactly the way that you want them to. I don't know. I imagine it was a little frustrating throughout the process, but do you feel that it was kind of worth it in the end, that like something good still came out of it with your, you know, great survey results and stories from kids?
Yes, I think, you know what, the best part about doing this now with you is that I have some distance from the whole experience. So it was really nice to spend time with the kids when they were here, but it was very challenging. At times it was just Ariel and I with like, 20 children, trying to help them figure out, 1/8 versus 1/4, and what's the difference. And you want every kid to have that moment to think it through. And so we always ran late. We always went overtime, and Park and Rec just had to roll with it, but they did, and they were nice. And it just, like, looking back now, though, I did out my bullet points and I was like, these were the good things. Oh, this is really good. Like, and look at this survey. Like, some of the bumps and bruises have gone away. And so I do feel like it was a good experience for all of us.
And I gotta tell you, I've been meaning to do this ever since, you know, you all sent me all of the material and stuff from the grant. I really want to make this apple donut recipe. Did you have a favorite? If I'm not mistaken, looking at sort of the stuff, it looks like there was an apple donut recipe, indoor s'mores, Oreo cheesecake bites, and chocolate covered Oreo truffles. Is that all real? That stuff that you guys made?
Those are real things. And Ariel, like, she reconfigured those recipes so that they could be like for one person instead of a whole big, huge batch. And so my favorite recipe, honestly, I didn't really eat anything, but I think the apple donuts, like, I thought that was great because that's a healthy snack and it looked really pretty. You could make it whatever you wanted. You could put your sun butter on there, or you could do cream cheese. You could do sprinkles, or you could do chocolate chips or raisins. It was so personalized. It was very fun.
Yeah. This, I'm not sure if you've put any thought into the possibility of repeating a version of this, but this seems like it might be a really interesting program to run, maybe in conjunction with high school students, maybe who need to get volunteer hours, right? Sort of pairing a junior, a senior, even a sophomore with a couple of second graders. Is this a program that you, now that there's some distance, because I get it, my feelings are still hurt about some programs, and I haven't been in public services in like 4 years. And there's still some programs where I'm like, not quite over it yet, but we're almost there. Is this something that you've ever thought of sort of trying again, just sort of in a different way, perhaps, to see if you got an experience closer to the one that you wanted?
There's been some changes around our library, and so it was never a time to think about doing that, but that is a great idea moving forward. I love that we could maybe get the teens involved. I'm not quite certain what their requirements are for graduation, but it would be a really good way to pull them into the library because they're a demographic that doesn't seem to get in here very much. So
you're not
busy.
alone. Yeah, the poor kids. They have 1.5 million things to do. But I mean, like I said, like, hearing your story and sort of some of the bumps and bruises, like, they're absolutely there. But I mean, even you mentioned like working with the town departments, right, of Parks and Rec and the Senior Center, even though your seniors weren't able to be there for all 8, pairing seniors with children is beneficial to both sides of that age demographic, right? So at the end, when I read about it, and from the proposal to the what do I call the final report that came in, and the cutest pictures in the world from some of the cooking events. To me, it looked like an incredibly successful program. And I really think that you should pat yourself on the back for sort of the pivots and the adjustments that you were able to make, and still manage to get such positive survey results, to have kids coming back and telling you that they were, and their families telling you that they were still, playing around with cookbooks and trying some of this stuff at home. I mean, you never know. Might have a little Gordon Ramsay or something who's able to say, this one time I was in the library and I made some Gordon Ramsay probably would make chocolate covered Oreo truffles. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds fancy enough for him. So when we ask for people to do these grants, one of the things we ask is, what is your impact statement? And I think this program made an impact. I think you definitely succeeded in the original intent, regardless of the shifts that needed to make. And your program wasn't the only one that needed shifting and adjusting. There were plenty others, I promise you.
Yeah, just like I had not been here very long at the time and never even heard of the summer enrichment grant. So it was all like, oh my goodness.
That was the first year. I had never heard of it either because I made it up. I made it up that year. It didn't exist. It was all made up. So don't worry. You were actually on the cusp of a new initiative, and similar to you, I'm like, let me make up this thing and see what happens. And along the way, learning happened. I was like, oh, messed up here. Oh, messed up. Change this for next year. So no, it was new to everyone, and we were just kind of seeing what was going to happen, knowing that summer programs needed support and funding and things like that. So y'all were on the right end of a really fascinating experiment that we're probably going to keep doing for a while.
Well, thank you so much for that opportunity. It was really a real growth experience for me, as well as, hopefully the children.
Well, it sounds like it. You've got proof on paper and you've got proof in an absolutely adorable anecdotal story. So I think it's a success for sure. And I just want to say thank you for taking some time to, come and tell us about it. Because like I said, I'm going to copy some of those recipes. I just don't like cooking in my kitchen that's behind me because then dishes happen. So, but no, this is great. Thank you so much for telling us about it.
Thank you, Kim.